Today I kind of just wanted to talk a little bit about trees in general and just the importance of trees that way. Trees are amazing. I don't know if anybody else has the passion that I have for trees, but I think that they're like wonderful to have around, to look at, to experience, and I again just wanted to reiterate how we're very fortunate in Edmonton. I haven't done a lot of traveling outside to some major cities, but to have this much of a green space within the city of Edmonton, we have to call ourselves very fortunate. Presently, the city of Edmonton actually monitors and maintains a lot of trees, and they've actually counted every tree that they have they monitor and maintain on their streets, boulevards, and in their parks. And presently we have 342,385 and counting boulevard and park trees that are managed by the urban forestry department, and most of these line the streets and are in parks, of course, and they are American elm. They are American elm trees, and Edmonton is known for one of its largest concentrations of American elm that are unaffected by the Dutch elm disease. So that's another really great thing to be proud of for Edmonton as well. And trees are one of Edmonton's greatest assets. They contribute to the beauty that we have in Edmonton, as well as to the quality of life that we've gotten used to. If I showed you some of these logos, I want you to just, you don't have to say them out loud, but think to yourself, do you recognize what these logos are? And so when we sometimes instantly see these logos, we know exactly what that product is. We know exactly, oh yeah, I know what that is. So how about some of the common trees and native species, and can you name them? Some can. So we have this one, and that one is a white spruce. Second one, a hint, might be looking at that there's two needles. It's actually a lodgepole pine. Up here, the one, iconic leaf, heart-shaped leaf. That's right, trembling aspen. And down below, has the lovely little white berries, dogwood. So yeah, we should know these trees, right? We see them within our river valley, our natural areas every day. We walk past them and regularly, and if we don't know them, are we too busy? Do we just realize that we're not paying attention to the trees that are around us? So I just wanted to crunch some numbers. This is just for fun, hypothetical. So as a hypothetical example of how busy some of our lives can be, we work, 40 hours a week, for most of us. We sleep, giving 8 hours per night. We sleep about 56 hours per week. If we have 1 hour lunch, 1 hour dinner, and a half hour for breakfast, which isn't very long, it's 17 and a half hours of just plain old eating. If you have chores like laundry, grocery shopping, I averaged it out to about 4.5 hours a week that we spend doing that. And the other two ones are kind of questionable. Like, I know there's a lot of variance, but Canadians are known for going online a lot. So possibly 9 hours a week online, just looking around, sometimes more, sometimes less. Up to 17 hours of watching TV. Between the ages of 18 and 34 was a stat that I had found. So that's 144 hours a week just doing stuff. And that in a week, we have 168 hours is in a week. And that leaves approximately 24 hours a week to do everything else. And that's about 3.5 hours a day left for stuff we enjoy, for going for walks, for planting some trees, for just enjoying our day, for playing with our family, for taking that time and that peace that we need maybe to enjoy some nature. So I guess I ask, like, what's happening? Why have we stopped using trees to help fulfill our needs and stop learning about the benefits of trees? And we move towards cities, and I think part of that is that we moved to cities to have that convenience, to be close to shopping and food, and just being in a greater area in a community. And now, though, we are hearing a lot of problems. We're hearing about, you know, nature deficit disorder or higher stress levels and maybe even some depression and possibly other problems. And I've even heard that some doctors have recommended and prescribed time to be spent in nature as part of their reduction of stress. And there have been some studies that have showed this to be true, that up to about 10 minutes a day, if you're surrounding yourself with nature, up to 10 minutes can significantly lower your stress levels and improves your mood. So even for a 10-minute walk during lunch would be a great thing. And so again, that makes me ask the question, what are your expectations of a city to look like? If we all live in a city, and the majority of us do, but yet nature is part of our life and part of our well-being mentally and physically, how do we combine those two? What are our expectations of what is a city supposed to look like? Because typically cities are a lot of hard surfaces, a lot of parks that are mowed and maintained, and yet nature itself in a natural area, like when we look around us, we have longer grass, you know, shrubs. We do have weeds. It's part of nature. Mother Nature's messy. She's not neat and tidy. Mother Nature's messy. And so how do we combine these two? And how should we live in peace with our nature as well as within the larger urban areas? Another consideration is, should we have more natural areas within our cities? And that way then we can make those natural areas convenient for us. If we live in cities for convenience, for shopping and for you know, accessing our work, and if we know nature is good for us and it's healthy for us and it's healthy for the environment, should we make more areas in the city natural, and therefore they're convenient for us? We can access them and use them all the times that we want. So why not bring nature back to our cities and back into our hearts and back into our wonder as adults, spending time within those natural areas just so that we can, you know, benefit from all of the great things that trees actually provide to us. So why don't we reclaim our nature and start rewilding? So one of our naturalization kind of logos is Reclaim Wild. And one of the tools, like I said, if we look at trees as a tool for us to help us survive and they help provide eco benefits for us. One of the tools to naturalize is the Root for Trees program. So naturalization is considered a landscape technique. It's an ecological management tool. So we take an area that was previously highly maintained and managed and mowed, and we start restoring it and returning it to as close to natural as we can. Obviously, you can never restore it to what it was naturally and originally, but over time, and it does take time, those natural processes start coming back to the land, and they start the cycles, and it starts working in its favor. In a natural area, you'll find that there is very few, if any, weeds or noxious weeds, because the area can actually self-sustain itself. And so this is what we want to continually do through different areas that are appropriate for naturalization. Obviously, we want to make sure that you know, the city workers and anyone that is maintaining that land is safe. So we'll take areas that maybe have a safety issue as well. Areas that aren't highly used by the public or that might be beneficial in an like to help the environment along waterways or around stormwater management ponds. So those areas are all beneficial areas to have naturalized. So natural areas and trees provide many environmental benefits, which I'm sure that you know. Native plants, smaller native plants and birds and other wildlife are able to reestablish in those areas in the healthy ecosystems. Of course, it's a reduction of carbon dioxide, it's a carbon sink and sequestration. Today we did some planting and slope stabilization. So the roots of trees, especially native trees, are very deeply rooted, so they will actually work their way into the side of the slope, and they help maintain the stability of a slope if there was a large rain event or just over time with group slumping. Of course, they improve air quality, and some pollutants are actually taken up and transformed by plants and microbes that work together. Native species conservation. We have, with cities and with even going back as Europeans, colonized the prairies and over this way, we've lost or, reduced the number of native species so quickly that, it's a scary thing. We don't want to lose these species. We want to make sure that we preserve them and we continue to help them, regain some of the ground that they've lost. Our native pollinators are dependent on them, and there's so many more benefits to having native species here that some of the animals, other plants and animals can't necessarily work, and they'll be work with the plants that we have brought in, like any other species that we've actually introduced to this area. They can actually take over, and so this is something that we want to be concerned about and be thoughtful of when we choose what we're planting, even just in our own yard. Of course, they increase water retention and soil. It also reduces flooding because it slows the amount of water running off of hills and into the drainage system. They reduce the energy, and as well as reducing the heat island in the cities for as they go through the transpiration. So in Edmonton, naturalization isn't new at all. Even before Edmonton was classified as a city, like in the 1900s, the river valley was actually farmed, and it was actually, you can find some in the historical records, that the trees were completely removed off of the river valley and people were farming alongside of the river. That's what they did. But luckily, there was enough people that realized that this is a really important asset, and we don't want to lose this. We don't want it to, disappear into farmland or being built up into, industry or homes. So they actually started replanting this. They would go to local areas that had native trees, and transplant some of the native trees over into this area and replanted the river valley. Groat Road is another great example. In the 60s, when they built Groat Road, it was actually a large area that they had to strip back, and they got people to replant this. Volunteers, citizens in the city came out and actually started replanting. So naturalization and tree planting in the city of Edmonton is very well connected, very closely connected. They've always done a lot of planting in the city of Edmonton. The largest push, I guess, was in 1990 when there was a naturalization master plan composed, and it looked at different areas within the city of what would be best suitable, what would work the best, and for the community as well to naturalize spots. And a lot of areas were selected, and actually that's where Root for Trees has actually started their naturalization. So back in 2013, when Root for Trees started, that's when we actually started looking at the naturalization master plan and working off of that plan. So the Urban Forestry Management Plan also was written in 2012, and this plan is a plan for a 10-year strategy to sustain and protect and manage and enhance the urban forest here in Edmonton. So they wanted to grow the urban forest. They also wanted to reach out to the citizens and the surrounding communities of Edmonton to get to know, to have more knowledge and what the benefits of having a healthy and vibrant urban forest would do for their community, as well as increasing. One of their main objectives was to increase the canopy, so that's the tree coverage when you're kind of looking down on Edmonton, is increase the tree canopy from 10% to 20% in 10 years' time. So that was in 2012 when they wrote this. And in 2013 is when the initiative came out with Root for Trees. So they looked at how the city forestry was planting trees, and they realized that they were losing trees due to drought, due to massive storms, or just with the age of some of their forests, and that they weren't going through the natural succession, that they were losing more trees than forestry could plant along boulevards and in parks. And they were planting about 3,000 or so a year. And so the solution was the Root for Trees program. And the Root for Tree program is an enhanced tree planting initiative, and it works to preserve and expand Edmonton's urban forests through partnerships with corporations and communities and groups and individuals as well. We invite citizens to sign up, just like as we did this morning, to sign up and do a planting event with us. And we provide all the materials, the plant materials, the shovels, the gloves. We give our program leaders attend, and they give instructions on how to do the plant, as well as some interesting facts about the native species that we are planting as well, and give a hand or share information and just talk about the different benefits that trees actually can provide for us. And it makes for a great learning experience, and I think that a lot of people walk away feeling almost more energized, even knowing that they might be tired from doing the tree planting, but I think they're more energized once they've contributed to that. So together with about over 4,000 volunteers, this is in 2016, so we planted over 36,000 trees and shrubs with our volunteers last year. And going forward, we have an annual goal. Our goal was always 16,000 trees, but we were always outdoing ourselves. So in 2017, we set a new goal, and it's going to be a goal and a target for us to really reach for. It's 45,000 trees. So going forward, we hope to plant 45,000 trees. Thank you. With our volunteers. And we also have to consider that we have an operational group that works with us, that works along on the roadways, which is a place that's unsafe for our volunteers. And this year they planted 60,000 trees in a matter of 3 days along some of our roadways. So that's altogether we're planting over 100,000 trees per planting season, which runs from May to mid-October. We also work on a lot of special projects throughout the season. One of them is the food forest, where we plant all native species, but all edible, like cranberry, Saskatoon, chokecherry, pin cherry, wild rose even, because you can use the rose hips for lovely tea, and also the pollinator planting. So during the pollinator planting, we work with a lot of native forbs, and we pick an area of the city that we are working on it, and we plant just strictly all the forbs and native flowers, and we make a lovely native wildflower to help out our native pollinators. And each event, obviously, we specialize on, and we focus on the ecological topics at hand and provide special education for those specific topics. And so I think about that and how Root for Trees has really taken off in the last 5 years, and I know that there's a need for it and there's a want for it. And so I want to encourage you guys to continue to think about trees and think about their importance and spread that. I know that, you know, maybe some of you have grown up in a rural area around trees, and so I just want, you know, to spread that enthusiasm and remember your youth and remember what trees used to mean to us and how we used to, you know, even if you were picking Saskatoons, and spread that enthusiasm throughout, you know, your little area and throughout Edmonton. And so I guess it kind of circles back to what do you want your city to look like? So if we can encourage to spend time in nature and encourage youth to learn about nature and learn and explore and imagine, it all becomes what we want to live in. How do we want to live and how do we want to see our city? So Edmonton itself encourages diverse communities within their their population, but also a diverse landscape and diverse amenities among them, like parks and natural areas like the river valley, as well as maybe even some natural parks that are right outside a local school. So I guess I'm hoping to expand your perspective of what a city should look like, and keep encouraging others to make that difference within our city. And please continue to root for trees.